I'll introduce myself really quickly, and then Erica will introduce herself again.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Selena. I'm one of the health educators from the Healthy Living Program. We're so excited to do this. Financial wellness is something that we are focusing a lot more on now, given the situation and just the truth that, there's a lot related to money and finances, and it does impact our well-being. So again, our goal is to always provide you the education and the resources to help you be your best you as a student, but also as an individual, right? So that's what we're looking forward to do today when we talk about different ways to cope with financial stress. Erica?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I'm Erica. I'm a financial wellness coach with the Financial Wellness Program. Like I mentioned earlier, we are doing a quick little thing on coping with financial stress, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to your well-being financially. There's a lot that encompasses it, and that's the whole point of this program here at FIU. Just like Selena said, your well-being is very important, and we're trying to achieve that by trying to eliminate, the fact that we don't have financial literacy or anything like that. So this is just one of the little segments we have going on this semester to help you guys.
Awesome. We're so happy to be working together. So
Yes.
we're going to go right into it.
So what is financial stress? I think this one kind of like the name speaks for itself, but it's just any negative feelings you have towards financial situations. So that's worry, fear, anxiety, any of those, stress is what they use to kind of encompass all of this, but it's not just stress. It could be, just feelings of fear, guilt, shame, and then just, a slew of negative emotions when it comes to finances. So it's important that we kind of tap into that to really understand what's working, beneath our gears and what's really making us feel these emotions towards our finances.
So really quickly, thumbs up, just a thumbs up if you're feeling financially stressed right now or you're dealing with stress that's related to finances, and it's okay. Remember, this is always a safe space with us. But I'd like to gauge where we currently are, to kind of get into the mindset of where we want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thumbs up. I know I am financially stressed. Thumbs down. Okay, so that's interesting. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I feel I'm always financially stressed.
And
All
I
right.
think an important thing to kind of touch upon is kind of what Selena said at the beginning, how all your different facets of wellness affect each other. So if you're not feeling well financially, chances are you're not going to be feeling well emotionally or career wise, right? So all of these things it's kind of like a domino effect. So it's important for us to really understand each one and how we feel about each one.
That's right. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So
So we're going to kind of discuss some common financial stressors. This one's geared more to students. And we found that, the basic ones are towards the bottoms, which are food and living expenses. I feel like even when you're not a student, you're kind of dealing with those things. But students specifically, they have a lot of stress that comes with tuition, finding scholarships, loans, books, fees, as well as transportation costs. Since I know most of us, it's a commuter university, it's very common for us to be coming in through some sort of transportation. Some of us have cars and we have car payments. Others have, Ubers or, whatever it may be that they're coming to school through. But that is also a financial stressor. Since a lot of us aren't dorming, it takes up a lot of our daily lives and how we're going to pay for it.
So does anybody want to share out of these, any that they can relate to or that resonate with them, with you at this time? You can use the chat or you can unmute yourself.
I meant to put a thumbs up, but yes, I can relate to the transportation costs because when I go to work, I take an Uber, and for some reason Uber has really been making their prices really high. So a lot of my paycheck goes to Uber. So Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And I've been hearing that a lot where a big form of transportation nowadays is Uber. And yeah, it adds up very quickly. So it's definitely a form of financial stressor on us when we have to wonder, how are we going to get from work to school, back home, and all these different things. Definitely. Okay. So we have also
Awesome.
living expenses in the chat as well. Yeah, those also rack up very quickly.
Very quickly. Very quickly. I mean, I think it's just, I don't know, the cost of everything is just really high right now. Maybe it's related to also the situation. That could be too. I mean, it's important to become aware of these financial stressors. Again, some of these we cannot control, right? And that's something that we always talk about when we discuss stress management. You can't always control the stressors. However, the goal is to put an action plan in place that will help you navigate through that stress and manage that stress, right? Especially for the stressors we can't control. And some of these, or most of these, are all ones that we can't control. You choose to be a student, so you're going to have to pay tuition, right? You may want to go for scholarships, and then you may take out loans. Then if you need to rely on transportation to get to where you're going, that's just something that it's a need, right? It goes back. I don't know who out of here joined our first workshop with the financial wellness program, but we talked about needs and wants, and a lot of these here are needs, right? So again, they become a stressor that it's not, we can just walk away from. How can we work through these stressors and make sure that we stay centered and we still feel okay, and we do that in a healthy way?
Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
So with that being
yes.
said, I think it's important to kind of, like she said, go over that which we can control. And I think I kind of broke it down, this whole workshop, into two ways. It's the internal work and the external work, right? So the internal work is going to be more towards our emotions, our psychological feelings towards our finances. And then the external work is habits that we can put into play, practices that we can incorporate into our lives that will help us feel like we have some sort of control over these uncontrollable factors. So I think we can go next. So we start off with the internal work, which is learning your money personality. FIU has a partnership with this program called iGrad. And in iGrad, you can actually do a quiz that can tell you what your money personality is. And in that quiz, you're going to have 5 different categories that you're kind of see where you fall into each one. So your first one is emotion. That is how you feel about your finances, right? So that is when you just think about them, what's your initial reaction towards them? And you can either be relaxed, apprehensive, or cautious. Then you have your second category, which is your outlook, and that's how you approach your finances. So that's when something comes up, like you have to pay for your car breaking down, or just thinking about future things that may come up in the future as expenses. How do you feel about that, right? So you can either be confident about having an uncertain situation pop up, you can be skeptical, or you can be optimistic. And I know all of these sound like they're not too bad. You're like, where's the bad one where I feel super unconfident? And it's because the skeptical kind of encompasses that, but the optimistic also encompasses some negative traits, which is like, you don't have any emergency funds, and yet somehow you feel like you're going to be okay. Some of us are like that, and that's okay. But, learning that about ourselves can kind of help us gauge, why when something out of the blue happens to us, we suddenly stress out. And it may be because we're optimistic, and then we don't have the actual, work in to prepare ourselves for that. Then we have category 3, which is focus. And that's kind of the time frame that you look at when you're thinking of your finances. And you could either be present focused or future focused. So present is like, I don't know if I'll be alive 30 years from now. I live for today. And then the future focused are those that are like, I know I'm fine, but I don't know what may happen in the future. I got to plan. And they both obviously have their pros and cons, right? Then we have category 4, which is influence. And that is what or who can affect your financial behavior. So you can be social, independent, and then there's elusive or decisive. They're separate, but we put them together because it's either, you can be either of those. So, and then the last category is bonus, which is actually, for me, I think it's lifestyle. But that's just how iGrad calls it. And you can either have fun lifestyle, adventurous lifestyle, or an organized lifestyle. And I know that when we look at this, you're like, well, I'm kind of a little bit of everything. And that's obviously true for all of us. But what the quiz kind of does is that it picks up what we're most, kind of concentrated on. So I think we could go to the next slide and I'll have little instructions on how to do the quiz, because we're all going to do the quiz together right now, so that we can kind of see where we are and have a discussion on that. It shouldn't take long. It's about 5 minutes. So I think we'll all be able to do it together. Let us know if you guys are having any issues. I also just want to quickly, as you guys are kind of going through that, mention that a lot of these things, they're not innately good or bad. Like it's easy to think like, oh, because I'm cautious towards, my financial emotions, that means that I'm not in a healthy state. Sometimes our financial situation doesn't necessarily represent how we're feeling. You can have a bunch of savings and still feel scared and, fearful and cautious. And then you can have no savings and feel like you're, zooming through life. So it doesn't, like I said, it's not innately good or bad. It just kind of shows some weaknesses and strengths and how we can improve our, financial personality in, preparing for certain things.
Awesome. So be sure, take a couple of minutes. I'm going to stop share so I can also take it. Let's see here. I haven't taken, I'm interested to see what my money personality would be. I'm a little nervous about it.
I mean, I'll be honest, I was kind of surprised, especially in the influence category. I thought I was going to fall under independent, where I was like, I'm the only one who can make decisions for myself. Nothing affects me. And I actually fell under social. Apparently, I'm very conscious of society and the pressures that they put on me to behave a certain way financially.
That is awesome. All right, let's see here. For those that are completing the quiz, or once you're done, feel free to take a moment to unmute yourself and share about it. We're going to do a discussion after we complete it to talk about our outcome. James, I believe the link is in the chat. Let me drop it again.
I just posted it in there.
Well, the one for the quiz, right?
We had Athena asking for the check-in link, okay. So I copy and pasted it.
I was going to let Athena know. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see here.
I'm happy to see a lot of people have been using iGrad. I didn't know that, a lot of the students knew about it. That's great, Joshua. Yeah, and I think I'll take this moment to kind of explain a little more what that is. It's just a platform that helps any kind of find any answers to your financial concerns. They have articles on FAFSA, they have articles on student loans, they have articles on, like we said, your money personality, you name it. They have kind of tools and quizzes and articles for pretty much about a lot of things that students have financial concerns over. And they also just help combat financial literacy. So they try to teach a lot and give you guys tools to improve, your knowledge on that. So I think it's a really good thing for you to maybe look into or try out on your own time.
I don't think I was able to log in. I would use my student credentials, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, maybe it's because I'm no longer a student.
Oh no.
It's both a good thing and a bad thing.
Elena, that's a good point. You should be able to use your student though. So I'm surprised if you select your student, it should go through, because when I log in, I select, it works for me. But for people that were not students before, you have to go through manual sign up.
Okay, I can do that
There's a
later.
manual sign up option. Yeah.
Okay, and you register?
Is anybody else having a hard time getting logged in? Okay.
So far, so good. All right. Let us know in the chat when you've completed the quiz, or thumbs up. Let me pull up the presentation again. Or you can let us know, Athena, when you're done. That's okay too. We're going to discuss that. So if you wanna, we can wait for that. I know you also took it. Do you, Kim or Erica, recommend taking this every so often, or is it like one-time deal? What do you
Yeah,
think?
it's one of those things that I check in again like once a year to kind of see, if anything's changed, if what's improved, what hasn't. Because I think we all have visions for ourselves. So let's say, you fall under apprehensive, but you want to become cautious, and, then it's important to take the steps that they recommend to kind of improve on that, and then come back again and see if you've been able to make those changes or where you stand now. So yeah, definitely something you could come back to over and over.
Yeah, the assessment will help you take an honest look at how you feel about these things. And I mean, yeah, if you were to take it like every month, I think like you would get used to the questions. But if you do it, like Erica was saying, once a year, once every 6 months, then you'll gain insight on how you're making those improvements, if you're making the improvements, different action items that you can try out to grow in those particular areas. So it's a really cool tool that you should definitely check in with that and use it over again. And also the financial wellness checkup on iGrad. I don't know if any of you are, I know Athena is familiar with it, and James too, but that's the assessment that you start off with when you log into iGrad. That's something else that it's recommended that you do again as well, because your financial situation, your financial stressors, the things that you want to accomplish, that's going to be fluid and change with time. So it's good to kind of like check in and reassess how you're doing.
Awesome. So I think we can probably move on to the discussion portion. I'm sure there's quite a few of them who have been able to do it. So the first one is, what stressors align/resonate with your money personality? So we kind of went over a couple of stressors at the beginning, which is, food, living expenses, tuition, and how do those stressors make sense now that you kind of have a look into your money personality? For example, if you're someone who's present focused and you're not kind of, buying food to put in your fridge and your fridge is always empty, then it makes sense why food is such a financial stressor for you, because you're probably having to go out to eat because, you're not really stocking up because you don't have that future focus. So there's different ways that these personalities can kind of affect and create stressors that, we can remove if we had a change of vision or personality in a sense. So share with us. And I'll read the other questions too, because we don't all have to answer the same one. The second one is, what are some ways our money personality affects how we manage or prioritize our financial matters and responsibilities? Kind of falls in line with the first one, but basically, what about our personality helps us see priority in things? So if, like the category 4, influence, if you're someone who falls under social, then you'll tend to prioritize expenses that affect your social life or just how you are viewed socially. If you're someone that's more independent, then the chances of you prioritizing your expenses based on others or society will be lower, and it'll be more from yourself, right? The other question is, how could we use this knowledge to combat our financial stress? And the last one is, what is an important takeaway from discovering your money personality? And I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that, everyone. So please share. You guys can unmute yourselves as well. And there's no wrong answers. Everything's the right answer.
Hey, I'll talk about mine. So I feel like all of the categories I got are like very accurate, actually. And I never like realized because I have like independent because I don't like people telling me what to do with my money.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like focused on the future because I'm like, I like to plan that way I don't put myself in debt. And I think that helps a lot. And then I had cautious for the emotions one, which I didn't realize I was so cautious because I like spending sometimes. So I didn't really think I was cautious, but I guess I am to some degree. So I kind of agree with the accuracy of the score.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, a lot of us, like you said, like the first category, emotion, you were kind of taken aback because you're like, oh, I spend quite easily, I don't see the caution in that. But it's that we don't really realize how in our subconscious, our mind is kind of like, in its own way, calculating and trying to see the outcomes of our decisions. And that falls under cautious, right? So now that you shared with us, I kind of wanted to know, in what ways do you think some of these affects your financial stress or how you prioritize your financial matters?
Well, looking back at it now, I feel like I don't know, the way I prioritize is very sporadic because like sometimes I'm like, okay, Lakeisha, I'm gonna try to save and do this. And then other times I'm like, I deserve a break. I'm gonna go shopping because I feel like it just depends on how I'm feeling in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that no, and like I said, we encompass a little bit of everything. So I think at times you may be present focused, and think, well, today I deserve this. It doesn't matter what comes tomorrow. Today I'm feeling this way and I need to, relax and go out.
Yes.
And then there's other days where you're more future focused, right? And you're like, save, plan with an emergency fund.
Yes.
So that definitely makes sense. And did you see when you did the quiz that how they had like little like 3 strengths, weaknesses, and ways to work on it?
Yeah, I see it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, though, so when you do the quiz, that's a good thing that they kind of go over these things and they give you little, tips here and there on how to make changes or improvements or ways to work with what you have, right? So none of these means that you're bad at, how you're handling your money, because at the end of the day, this is you and being you is beautiful. But it just means, okay, now we understand who we are. How do we work with who we are? And it gives you those tools necessary to kind of figure that out. Does anyone else want to share?
One more person, come on.
It could be in the chat as well. It doesn't have to, you don't have to share your voice with us. It's okay.
We can just wait until peer pressure makes somebody come forward. Joshua, any insight to share from your completion of the Your Money Personality Assessment?
Some of these may still be working on it, I feel.
Okay.
I think if anything, we can just move on to the next ones and, people will type in the chat if they want to share some things.
Yes, and if
We're
anything,
finished.
for those, take a picture or screenshot of this slide if you'd like. And this is something that I recommend really taking a moment. I want to put an emphasis on something that Kim said when she was describing the money personality quiz. It's an honest assessment. The only way to navigate through stress in a healthy way for a positive outcome, to feel okay and to feel good during it, right, is by being honest with yourselves. And so that's the same for me too. Anytime I'm looking at a problem and it's really stressing me out, what can I do about it? And I need to get honest. So the idea of this activity is to help shed some light on that, right? Because it's by identifying that we're able to make changes and have a different outcome or improve the outcome that we're in, right? Or even just better the outcome. Maybe what we're in right now is not even bad,
Yeah.
right? We're just working on improving our financial wellness. So take a screenshot. This is something you'd like to journal about later. I definitely recommend, asking yourself these questions so you can put, 2 and 2 together, like, oh, this is my money personality, and no wonder this may cause me a little bit of extra stress, and what are some ways that this affects me and how can I work through that? And again, these activities are for you. You're going to get out of what you put into this workshop. So if you're here, I just strongly recommend that you make the most of your investment of time and energy to fully participate. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go on.
So now we're kind of going on to the external factors. So we're not looking, too much into ourselves anymore. Now we're just kind of creating habits that we can stick to create some sort of normalcy or even security when we feel insecure. And I think that's the biggest kind of underlying factor of stress. And it's the fact that we feel insecure about something, whether it be we don't know when a next payment is coming up or how much that payment is going to be or whether we have the money for it. It's a bunch of I don't knows, right? So although these habits won't answer every single I don't know you have, it'll at least be able to give you some sort of, framework and some sort of structure. That way you only have like 2 I don't knows to focus on, right? So the first one is create a 30-minute weekly financial check-in. And that's all it takes, 30 minutes a single day for you to check in with yourself. And you do 10 minutes of each of these. So you just check your bank accounts, just a 10-minute check. You look at all your different bank accounts, you see the activity, you see the summary. This is a good way to also check to see if all of your expenses are really those that are showing up. Because a lot of the times there may be fraud or whatever it is, and we don't catch it until way later. So this is a good way to kind of be on top of tracking our expenses and making sure everything is matching up. Then we have 10 minutes of review dates and payments. So just quickly pulling up everything you have to pay and seeing, okay, this one's due, April 1st, this one's due 2 months from now. So that way you can kind of create an idea of what has priority and what you can kind of work towards in the meantime. And then the last one is 10 minutes of creating or reviewing financial goals if you already have some financial goals. So this one's important because, we have the 2 that are pretty black and white. You just go in, look at your bank account, then you just review all the due dates. But then this last one, it's kind of you decide for yourself the vision and the goals and the plans you want for yourself. So sometimes we kind of go through life kind of aimlessly, we're just like, oh, maybe I want to one day have a solid retirement, or, maybe one day I'm going to improve my car, but we never make them like concrete goals for ourselves. So we never really work towards them. It's very passive. So in this sense, with these 3 things, you're becoming proactive and not just passively, reactively living life, right? So it's important to have a place where you're going to see these goals or, visit them often so that you can kind of keep yourself in line and see, okay, I remember this and I'm going to try to do something today to achieve a little more, to maybe get one step closer to this goal. And the other 2 fall in line with that as well. Like I said, it's about creating a more proactive stance in your life rather than just reactive, allowing payments to just come at you and you just like, oh, okay, I guess it's, I'll pay right now. And in this sense, you're kind of being the one in control of when you're going to pay it and how you're going to pay it. So the other thing is budgeting. This one's important as well because it kind of tackles those 3 issues, but in a more thorough or deeper sense. So with budgeting, you're also tracking your expenses and you're understanding your savings and how your financial activity is going, and you're creating that visual for yourself. And you're also actively choosing how much you want to save, what's worth it in terms of your expenses. It's a way to, like I said, visualize your financial behaviors and your financial activity. And that way it gives you more power and more control over how you're going to achieve what you want to achieve. But like I said, this one, it doesn't fall in the 30-minute weekly financial check-in, because it is something that takes a little bit more time. It is something that requires you to sit down and really have a thorough idea of what you want and how you're gonna create that. But it's still something that's important for you to at least do once a month, I would suggest. And then the next one is temptation bundling. This one's a really good one, because you look at the first two I suggested and you're like, yeah, that sounds good in theory, but like when I actually have to do it, it's hard, right? It's something that scares me. It's something I don't like doing. It's something I know I should do, but for some reason I can't get myself to do it. And what temptation bundling is, it's that you combine something you enjoy with something that you know you should be doing. So it kind of, from an example that I always use is when you know you have to do your 30-minute weekly financial check-in, and you feel dread about doing it, or you feel bored, or you don't feel motivated to do it, I would suggest incorporating that into your self-care day. Let's say you take a day to do a face mask and make yourself some tea and sit down and scroll through Instagram. You can also use that time while you have your face mask, while you have your tea, to just quickly check into your bank accounts, or quickly review your goals. Incorporate that into something that you already have some sort of commitment to or enjoy doing. That way you do two things. You actually you combat those negative emotions you have, and you try to rewire them in a way where you sometimes feel excited to do them, or you look forward to doing them, or you just feel zero, you feel neutral, right? The best thing is to kind of eliminate the negative emotions. And then the other thing is that through temptation bundling, you're creating a positive association to it. You're like I said, you're removing those negative stress, what's it called? Those negative, whatever, you know what I mean? And you're creating a new idea towards it, that it doesn't have to be something that's done on a whim when, everything's falling apart. That's when you go in and you check it. You're now creating an idea that I can check this when I'm relaxed. I can check this when I'm taking it easy, so it's an important thing to encompass when you're trying to do the budgeting or the 30-minute financial check-in. And I think we can move on to the next one. Like we said, today we're coming in hot with the activities. So we have another one. This one, you don't have to talk or anything. You just go to this little QR link. We have a couple of questions there that we can all kind of answer. You don't have to answer all of them. You can pick which one you want to answer, and we can discuss some of the answers you guys give us. Let us know if you guys all managed to get there.
All right, before I stop sharing and I pull up the Padlet, I'll give everyone a couple of more seconds to join. Again, this activity is for you. It's for you to make use of your time here already. So instead of thinking I may do this later, we are committing to just spend a couple of minutes on this and answering these questions. It's also anonymous. So once I pull it up, you'll see the responses, but it won't identify who's sharing what. And remember that one really big benefit of sharing and actively participating in engagement is that you are helping others at that same time. You're creating that opportunity for someone else to be like, oh, wow, I'm stressing out about the same financial stressor, or wow, look at how they're coping through their financial stress. Maybe I could try that way too. right? And so that's also another intention behind doing the activities that we do, is to create that social wellness connection with one another, especially during this time that we may feel so isolated and disconnected. And now, especially with something as big and impactful as financial stress, instead of thinking, okay, I'm not the only one that may shy away from budgeting, right? I mean, my mom just yesterday was like, have you sat down and done your budget? And I'm like, yeah, but no, I did not. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, I should possibly sit down and put it all on paper. So here, yeah,
Definitely.
let me drop the link in the chat, and then I'm going to pull up the Padlet. Hopefully we have some responses already. There we go. Let's see here. What does this say, Athena?
They're saying that the link doesn't work.
All right, give me 1 second, you guys. Let me check it out. Maybe it expired. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up.
Athena wrote that she's like, oh, I see now. So, oh no, she says it still doesn't work.
Hold on. Troubleshooting. I need to just get into the Go website. So give me 1 second.
In the meantime,
okay.
I kind of just, okay, were you able to do it?
Yeah, well, if you guys want to refresh, tell me if it works. I'm testing it out now. CFS goals. All right, I got it. Awesome. And I did see some people. You could get in through the QR code, even if the link didn't work. As a heads up, the QR code did work. So that was my mistake. I forgot to finalize something on the Go link side, but it is up and running now. So let me share my screen. Thank you for letting me know. Everybody sees the green screen?
Yes.
Green for money. Green for money. Surround yourself with money. Live and breathe it, right? You know, focus on financial wellness when you're looking to improve your, you know, different areas of your life. Like, it's completely okay to set goals, and that's why we're doing this as well. So the first one is, I commit to doing a 30-minute financial check-in on what day of this week. Hold yourself accountable. That's what we're here for too. Put it down on paper, right? Make a note right now that you're filling this out. Go into your calendar, however you track, and add, okay, 10 a.m. on Sunday, I'm going to do my 30 minutes. So whatever day you're choosing, those that have put Friday, tonight, Thursday, I want you to set a reminder. I want you to go an extra step and put that on your calendar, or a reminder, so you do not forget and you stay accountable to your goals.
Even a stay note on a mirror. When you wake up and you go to your bathroom, it's there. You know, whatever it is to commit.
And then what are some ways you budget your finances? I love that Excel spreadsheet is old school. It's what I used to use too. Now I kind of track it through my notes on my phone. The Mint app, I have not tried. So that's interesting. I like that though. Calculator pen, create a list of expenses and bills. These are all great. Add up how much I spend in the week and try to spend less. Okay, that's awesome.
And I just want to, you know, mention that these are all valid, you know, especially as students, you know, sometimes we don't have the time to. So whichever is easiest and the one that you feel like you'll commit to and kind of stick to the most is what works, you know, and that's, it doesn't need to be the super crazy, you know, template that you found online and that you just can't seem to get used to. Even if it's like they said, like pen and paper, or just adding it up and seeing if you can spend less next week. Whatever it is to kind of allow yourself that moment to check in and be cognizant of how you're, you know, financially living is a great way to start.
Awesome. And I like these responses under what would you say to motivate yourself to stick to your financial habits. So I'll personally share, I recently bought my first property, like my first home. Hence why my mom is like, have you done your budget to really see? And I'm shying away from it because deep down, I am really, really stressed about just meeting that financial responsibility. right? And so it's normal to feel that way. It's still very exciting and it's okay, right? As we embark on more financial responsibilities. But something that I told myself during the process, and something that I'm committing to still tell myself moving on, as I know. And the reason why I've been avoiding doing my budget is because I know I'm going to have to sacrifice some things that I did not have to sacrifice before. But what helped me, and this also helped me when I was in grad school and it was really hard working full time, something my cousin told me while he was doing med school: short-term sacrifices for long-term gains, right? And it's just whether you need to write it down, whether you need to create a wallpaper and put it on your phone, whether you need to put it on a sticky note and put it in your car, write it with a dry erase marker on your mirror in the bathroom. Short-term sacrifices for long-term gains. I felt like I gave up so much of my financial wants in the process of achieving this goal, but that was also a goal that I wanted too, right? And I just had to consistently tell myself to stay to my financial goals and my healthy financial habits. Short-term sacrifices for long-term gains, right? So hopefully that helps someone. Financial freedom is a choice. I like that one. Erica, can you shed some light on practicing temptation bundling? Because I feel like it's supposed to be one of a need and kind of like a want, right? At the same time.
Yeah, well, it's not a need and a want. It's like, imagine you have to work out and you just hate working out, but you think to yourself, okay, at least I'll allow myself to listen to music while I work out. And you enjoy listening to music. Now you're pairing something you enjoy, which is listening to music, to something you don't enjoy, which is working out. And it makes that experience, maybe not super fun, but a little bit more pleasurable for you. So essentially that's what temptation bundling is. It's you're taking something that you don't particularly look forward to doing, but you add in a layer of something that you do enjoy to it. And that way it creates an easier process in sitting down and having to do it. Like I explained, if it's, having to sit down and look at your bank account, let's say you're someone that feels really scared to because you don't want to assess the damage. Sometimes we're like, I know I went crazy this weekend and I don't want to look at it. It's really easy to feel, scared to sit down and look at it. So like I said, if you put on a face mask, if you give yourself a moment of, making yourself some coffee, sitting down, taking a breath and just relaxing in that moment, take a second to look at your bank account, because now you're adding a layer of relaxation to something that you don't feel relaxed about, but it makes it a little bit easier to get through. I don't know if that made it clearer for everyone. I know it's a difficult idea, but I feel like it's something that a lot of us can use.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense. Like if I'm in a stressful situation, I'm not going to check and start doing my budget in that moment either, because I know it just will add to that. So
Right.
I think those are all really good tips to do. Awesome.
I just wanted to quickly add, I do find some of these really interesting that I had never thought about, which is try out new recipes to get excited about cooking at home. That's definitely a way that affects your financial situation, and it definitely is valid. Also working on my planner while you work on your budget book. I know sometimes journaling is a lot more pleasurable than looking at your budget, but being able to do two, you do 30 minutes of one and right after that you do 30 minutes of the other, definitely creates a better environment to do it, right? So all these are really great. Thank you for sharing, everyone.
Yes, these are all great responses. I'm going to pull up our presentation.
And this brings us to kind of our last point that I want to go over. And this one is external and internal work, really, because the external is that you're going to have to take a moment to yourself to sit down and have this self-care, this financial self-care practice. But internal, it's because sometimes our stress comes from the fact that we're not really being honest with ourselves. And Selena mentioned that earlier, and so did Kim when we were doing the personality quiz. But it's that sometimes we try to evade responsibility, or we try to blame it on everything but ourselves, right? And in that sense, you're removing any control you have from the situation. And although it's easier to blame others, sometimes having that control is more important, especially when it comes to finances. So being able to, reclaim that control, reclaim that empowerment, comes from sitting down and having an honest conversation with yourself. And being able to say, last month I did miss my payment, and that caused me some fees, and assessing, the role you played in that is very important, because once you assess that role, then you can allow yourself to be forgiven, right? You forgive yourself, and you figure out steps to work past that. You say, well, last month I did it because I was just overwhelmed with school and, all these different things. So I forgive myself. How can I make sure that this time around school and all those things don't affect me again? And now you're actively, like I said, reclaiming that control. And then the last thing is it doesn't have to be all negative. It also is a moment of realizing what you've done right and what you've accomplished. So it feels like it's self-deprecating and like you're having to like look at yourself in a negative light, but it's seeing everything that you've kind of had a role in, both negative and positive, and being able to see like, at the end of the day, I'm the one showing up for myself time and time again, whether it be looking for scholarships and applying to them, whether it be, looking for ways to pay off my debt. All these different things are ways that you are showing up for yourself and accomplishing your goals, right? So it's kind of like you're just sitting down with yourself and having that moment to really take control over that which is yours. And in its sense, it's a financial self-care moment. That's what I like to think of it as. So I think that this is really important in helping us create better habits and visions for ourselves. And I think that brings us to our last little activity, which we called it Reflect and Release. And I think, I don't know if Selena, you want to talk about it?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, as you know, before we can welcome new things into our lives, it's important to take a moment. That's what this workshop was intended to do, to help you reflect, provide you the tools that can help you reflect and identify things that you may want to work through to improve your financial wellness and overall just financial well-being and your overall well-being in life, right? So now we put some things down and we commit to releasing them. This does not mean that they just disappear. I can write down, today I choose to release the stress over my future mortgage. However, I'm gonna still have to pay my mortgage every month, right? So it's not going away on its own, but I'm committing to approaching it with a different mindset and to working through the stress that's being caused by this financial responsibility, right? And I'm releasing that stress and I'm welcoming my own commitment to managing the stress, however that is. So take a moment, write these things down. If you were to have an honest conversation with yourself about your financial wellness, what would you say? 1 to 2 sentences, right? Originally started as a letter. If you'd like to write yourself a letter, you can. At HLP, we're also very big on like energy work. Next, the 28th, I believe is Sunday, we'll have the full moon. You can keep this paper, burn it then, or come to our full moon circle on the 31st and burn it then, or you can just rip it up now and flush it down the toilet. List 1 to 3 ways you commit to practicing financial self-care this month. Right? And then write 1 to 3 things that you are releasing that are causing you financial stress. Today, I choose to release ... about my finances. I choose to release my self-doubt of being able to meet the demands of a mortgage. And I release my fear of being financially independent now as a single mom, about my money and how that impacts my pocket. And I welcome change and new beginnings with faith and with, stability, and just believe that it will all work itself out somehow, right? So whatever you need to tell yourself, of course, be honest with yourself, and have a plan, So take a few moments. If you want to share about these or one of these or all of these, by all means, unmute yourself and share about it. If not, you can drop it in the chat. I really like approaching it from a self-care perspective, like financial self-care, because now that I think more about it, I'm like, it is financial self-care if I sit down and do my budget and put it in writing, you know, and have an idea of really what it's going to look like now. And I've just shied away from it from so much fear, you know, and not having to deal with those emotions. And I've said it when we did our money goals workshop, and maybe in the future, sometime in the fall, we'll get together too, and we'll do something that kind of helps navigate the emotions that come from finances, right? And financial stress, because I think that's a big part of it. Can I sit down and do my budget? Yeah, I can grab a sheet of paper, write everything down. How I cope through the feelings of doing that is a different story. And that's what stands in my way of doing that, right? But it's important. And so if I can shift my perspective and say, this is a form of self-care, getting honest with myself and putting things in writing, right? Or taking those 30 minutes a week to just do a check-in. I mean, ultimately, it helps me approach it rather than shy away from it out of fear, right? This is a way of taking care of myself. This is a way of taking care of my mental well-being. This is a way of taking care of my pocket, of my mind and my heart, which will impact me as a student, as an individual, as a mom, right? As every other role that we are in our lives. So
Right.
thank you for sharing that. I like that perspective.
Yay.
Financial.
Yeah, I think it's a really important one because a lot of the times, I always say this, but money is the one thing that we feel like we have no control over. So being able to, you know, establish some sort of empowerment when it comes to that is a really important role in feeling like we have some say in what happens and how it goes down. And, you know, if that's emotionally or if that's, you know, creating habits for yourself, whatever it is, these are steps that kind of help create that, you know, it looks like a monster and suddenly it becomes smaller and smaller with every step you take. So it's a really important process. And I say process because you're not going to get it right the first time. And the, you know, it'll never feel finished. It's something that will always evolve as you evolve. So it's important to always have these check-in moments with yourself.
You're right. And what happens to a monster when we just walk away the other way? It either gets bigger or the more we think about it, right?
Yeah.
It gets bigger, it builds.
Or sometimes our
Or
mind, you know, if we don't look at it, our mind makes it bigger than it is. And suddenly when we're like, no, face it, then you see, oh, it's a tiny little thing, you know? So sometimes it's just looking at it is what needs to really assess the truth, right?
facing it. That's right. I mean, the only way out is through. That's another quote or phrase that I heard that I have hung on to my entire life. The only way out is through, because my, you know, my natural way of coping through things is to not, right? But the outcome is not positive in that case.
Yeah.
So they never.
If you don't make decisions for yourself, other people will for you, you know?
Yes,
So
like,
if someone's going to have to make it, it better be yourself. And that's the number one form of self-care, is to love yourself and show up for yourself, right?
I love that.
Mhm.
That's right. All right. So I believe we have a form that we wanted to share a handout with everybody. So give me 1 second. I'm going to stop share before we end. And let me see if I can pull this up here. So that way. All right, perfect. Here it is. Kim, I can go ahead and just copy the link, I think, into the chat for everyone. Oh, perfect. You did. Okay. So this is what it looks like. I'm not sure, Kim, if you want to take a quick, well, it pretty much summarizes what we went over in the presentation.
Yeah.
Great.
This
Awesome.
handout, yeah, we'll be sending it to everyone who attended this workshop. And it's kind of just a quick summary of everything we went over so that, you know, you guys can have it with you and look back at it and remember it for future.
Perfect. And we did record this workshop too, so it'll be available. I know on our end with a big event that we have coming up this week, but it may take a little bit of time to upload because we have to edit them. So it's not like we can just upload the videos from Zoom. We'll edit them and then we'll upload it, but just keep checking our YouTube channel and it'll be there for you to reference or to share with anybody else too, or come back. So we have our resources, financial wellness program. You have met some of the team on here. Take a screenshot of this slide if you'd like. And then, now you have the information and you can do a little bit more research, or feel free to reach out. Also, there's Panthers Care. I didn't put Panthers Care, but that is a great resource. Panthers Care is an office within the Dean of Students, and they help any type of student in any type of distress, right? And related to finances as well. They are also managing or working through, I believe, with the COVID relief grant and stuff that we got. So if you need support right now and you've been impacted, right, in different ways, it doesn't have to be just your pocket is impacted. But for example, I know of someone who lost their parent to COVID, and thankfully, an advisor in the office, like the school that they go to, thought about that person and reached out and say, hey, by the way, that you could qualify for some financial assistance to help cover the funeral expenses, so there's just a lot of different help right now, and a lot of different resources that, again, you really technically pay for as a student, right? This is part of your tuition. So we're here to help you be your best you, not just the best student, but best you. And on that note, we'll end with this affirmation: I am worthy of a solid financial foundation. And take a moment and complete the eval. We'll drop it in the chat as well in a second. Repeat that out loud to yourself. You're worthy of a solid financial foundation. If that means rebuilding the foundation you're on and practicing some of these financial healthy habits that we talked about, and coping through the stress and facing it head on, then that's what we do, right? But it is worth doing that, and you are worthy of having a solid financial foundation that can later help you achieve all the goals that you shared with us in the Padlet.
Yes, and I just want to say thank you all for coming and sharing